Okay, so here we are, um, and this is the video I promised, explaining in some level of detail the things that go into the flight planning process. Um, I did start to talk about this earlier today while I was in flight from from Las Vegas to Portland, and I had to kind of stop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start all the way from the beginning, just for the point, just to make the points that I was making, um, perhaps more solid, because I know I have more time to really dedicate to explaining myself. I didn't get to finish, obviously, so now that I can finish, this is what we're going to do. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to be basically back and forth between these two pages. You have the summary page, which is what we're going to use for, putting the information that we in gather or whatever in, and we're going to be planning the Emirates Dubai flight from Brazil. In addition to these two web pages, I'm also going to be using the Volanta app, which I could probably show you now. I'm going to be using the Volanta app. And the purpose of me using the Volanta app is because this is it's like maybe like a mini representation of what would be up on the big screen in the dispatch office, essentially, with all the flights taking place, and you would be able from the out center to view and track your flights, how many ever you may have under your control at a particular point in time, and see where it is and how it's doing, generally speaking. Now, the area between here is generally not controlled by radar. This is oceanic airspace, meaning that it doesn't have any radar coverage. So between here and here, generally speaking, when we do load the flight, it's not going to have very much coverage at all, radar-wise, until we get perhaps close to the coast over here. And generally speaking, even within the African continent, there are a lot of non-radar areas. That being said, I don't want to waste any time because it's already getting late and I want to get this flight off of the ground by 9:30. So, as I was saying before, what usually has to happen is that you will determine certain things before you go ahead and commit to planning the flight. Now, the first thing you'd want to do again is to check the MELs and the CDLs to know, okay, before I continue, let us make this very clear. Even though I am using real world examples, this is not for real world use. Because there are obviously a lot of things that go into the real world planning that I'm not going to talk about, and it should not be construed as a real world scenario. This is just for flight sim, more or less giving you basically some kind of understanding, even if it's just a small understanding of what goes into planning actual flights. So the first thing you have to do is that you have to check the MEL and the CDL items for dispatch conflicts, which basically means that you have to make sure that the plane is able to go. So MELs are minimum equipment lists, and minimum equipment lists are basically things that are they're basically things that are not missing, I'm sorry, inoperative on the plane. So you may have the APU inoperative, or you may have like the seat may be the electric motor might be broken, or you might have like a backup hydraulic system inop, or obviously that might be a problem, but that's the point I'm trying to make, is that things are not working as they should. Whereas the configuration deviation list is more like things that are missing off of the plane, like doors and like equipment hatches, essentially. Like, you might have a landing gear door missing, or you might have a a chair missing, or you might have something that has changed from the 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 layout or the settings that you are accustomed to, and that would unfortunately mean differences in weight and balance, etc. It means more drag, or it may mean that the plane is not able to do certain things, essentially. So for both MELs and CDLs, what happens is that you would have some kind of flight planning penalty, whether that means that you can't go above, for example, if you know that I think as a APU problem, I forgive me because these things sometimes slip me. So you may have a problem or something inoperative on the plane. That means like okay, if you have a pack missing, or not missing, a pack inoperative. So one of the packs are inoperative. You may have two packs on this plane, and only one is required. Like if you look at the MEL, it will tell you like how many there are and how many are required for the plane to be able to go. And if one of them is not working, because you're allowed to fly with one, it will have a penalty for, say, the altitude. You won't be able to climb above X altitude. No, the reason for that would be, generally speaking, if that were to be the case, that the pneumatic system is what pressurizes the plane. So if you have a situation where the packs aren't working, it means that the plane is not going to be able to be pressurized normally. And for safety reasons, it might be beneficial for you to not put yourself in a position where you have to, have something detrimental happen. So you might not be able to fly above a certain level. Okay, that's fine. So for that goes both ways. So either MELs or CDLs have those particulars in the minimum equipment list or the CDL, which will suggest how many are on board, how many are required, and whether you can fly without, or how many you can fly safely without. If you don't find those things in the MEL or the CDL, it usually means that it is required automatically. If it's not a part of the minimum equipment list or the CDL list, it is automatically required for flight. So if whatever it is you can't find on the CDL or the MEL, it means that plane can go nowhere. So those are things you have to watch out for. Now in the flight sim world, obviously, we don't have very many MEL CDL issues. We know that we're having a lot of high fidelity planes coming out. We got the PMDG right now, and the Phoenix coming out very soon. You got the Mad Dog just released also recently. So it's like a lot of high fidelity planes are coming out now. So we can more accurately simulate these things based on the fact that the failures can be simulated now properly. So the next thing that we should do is check the terminal weather, the NOTAMs, the fuel conditions, and applicable minimums. Shoot, I should also use this is going to be a long video. I can't have it be a long video. I'm going to have to do over this video and make it more inclusive. But for the time being, I'm just going to run through the process. I wanted to do this differently, but I appreciate that I don't necessarily have the time to do so. So we're going to plan this for tonight's flight specifically, and then I'm going to do another video, like a more generalized video, explaining myself better. So now we have the aviation weather center. Now this is where you get all your aviation weather from. Not everybody, but I guess the US uses the aviation weather center along with other weather centers. Along with other weather centers. So for right now, we are departing SBGR, and my scheduled departure time is 0130 Zulu is when I want to leave. and that's block off time, meaning when they push from the gate, it should be 9:30. So here we have the current NOTAM, which was at 2300 Zulu, and we have not NOTAM, the current METAR, which was from 2300 Zulu on the 18th, which was 21 minutes ago. And the wind is coming from the northwest, 30018, gusting to 29 knots. And the cloud cav OK means cloud and visibility OK. You have the temperature is 10 degrees and the dew point is 5 degrees. Now the dew point spread is very important flight planning wise, because you could have a dew point that is, if you have a dew point that is less than 3 degrees while the temperature is below 8 degrees, it generally means that you're going to have to plan the flight including the anti-ice figures, meaning having the anti-ice on having the anti-ice on is going to be more or less one of those things that you have to account for, because it will have some kind of performance hit on the takeoff. And you have the QNH 1014. So since we are departing not at 2300, we have to check the weather around this time, the forecast, which is this, the terminal airdrome forecast. And we can see that it is valid from the 19th at midnight to the 20th at 6 a.m. And it was issued at 2200 Zulu, which was an hour and 23 minutes ago. So temporarily between zero. So what we need to do now is look here at the tempo. Well, we need to look for a specific time slot. Wherever our time falls is where we need to look. So we're leaving at 1:30. So between 00 and 03 is where we need to be looking. So temporarily between 1900 temporarily between 1900 and between 00 Zulu, which is midnight, and 3 a.m. on the 19th Zulu time, the winds will be, or forecasted to be, 290 at 15, gusting to 25, and the clouds and visibility are still okay at that particular point in time. So that's what we need to check, and we see that there's nothing significant here weather-wise. So based on that, we can at this point say that the flight can depart, because that's what we're asking ourselves now as it relates to checking the weather and the fuel conditions and the minimums, etc. So can the flight depart? The flight can depart because the weather is going to be okay enough for us to leave. Now, in a situation like this, I would need to also consult the chart. So I'm going to add that in now, and we'll take a look at the chart. That's true. That will be in here somewhere. Okay. Okay, so now that we got the charts in, I'm going to have to come all the way down. As a matter of fact, no, because we don't have that. I mean, we did have it loaded in from last night, so I can essentially, it's going to be the same route, luckily enough. So we will need this page, which is the 9 alpha. It usually says 10. Some airports have 20. I can't tell you why some are 10 and 20, but we need the part where it specifies takeoff minimums. And that being the case, we're going to come over here to the minimum side of things, and we are looking for, I mean, granted, this is where you would check the NOTAMs as well to make sure, but again, this is flight sim, there are generally not going to be any no times, and if there are, then we will check them at that particular point in time. So as it stands now, we're taking this as there are no applicable no times to this flight as it relates to Sao Paulo. So we have the IFR takeoff minimums. I'm having a little difficulty here because I feel like, anyways, this page look a little foreign to me. Lighting and RVR requirements. I think perhaps I was just confusing myself. Nevertheless, the takeoff minimums here, I feel like it should go a specific runway though. Honestly. Well, we'll start at the top. And you need the high. What is required? You have to have the high intensity runway lights and the centerline lighting to be operational in order to use this RVR. So both of those things have to be operational, and the required RVR meters, they have to have at least two. Well, the touchdown zone and the rollout RVR must be operational in order to use this RVR 150 meters. If you just have, if it's daytime, and you have one of the either the centerline lighting, the rental light, you have either centerline lighting, the runway centerline markings, or it, which is the high intensity runway lights. You can use R350 so long as it is in conjunction with the touchdown zone RVR and the rollout RVR. If it's at night and you have either centerline lights or high intensity runway lights, and you have both touchdown zone RVRs in operation, you can also use RVR 350 meters for your departure minimums. If you got daytime and you only have runway centerline markings, either the touchdown zone, mid, or the rollout RVR, then your takeoff minimums are RVR 500 meters. If you only have runway centerline markings and no RVR, then it goes up to 800. If you have none of those things, then it is a visibility of 1600 meters. So it changes from R to V at this point, and there's a difference, but I will get into that later on. The standard IFR departure minimums, generally speaking, is 1/2 statute mile. So you have to at least have a half statute mile, or you can use one of these in the event that you have these things available. Generally speaking. But anyways, we established that we don't need to look at that right now because at this stage, unfortunately or fortunately, We don't need all of that. So that was just a by the way, I suppose. So we can come back now to the weather. So we already got the weather for this flight. Well, for the departure anyway, and we are going to check the weather for Dubai, which is also important because the flight is about 14 hours long estimated, so we can get there around like 15, let me call it 1600 Zulu. And that being the case, we need to come here and check and see what the weather is going to be like, what the weather is forecasted to be like 14 hours from now. Now pay attention that the farther away a forecast is from the present, the more inaccurate it becomes. So things are definitely going to change in 14 hours. It might not necessarily be that much different, but it could very well be different. So those are things to bear in mind. So 19. So after 1800 Zulu, which is here, between 16 and 18. So we could really say that at 1800 Zulu is when it's going to be like this. I'm going to still expect, because nothing else has changed with respect to the visibility, that the visibility is still not going to be great, and that there isn't going to be any significant weather, but we're going to have a wind from the southwest at 7 knots, generally speaking. So it's obvious also that we can make the flight, because let me check the landing minimums. For Dubai. Well, the minimum is going to be whatever the approach we use. We don't have that right now, but we would normally plan for that, even if it changes. Using the longest runway, which is probably going to be, since we're coming that way, it can probably be one of the 12s, and it can probably be the 12 right. So if that's what we're going to do, we're going to plan for ILS to 12 right. And I'm going to bring up the ILS 12 right on the screen, and we will check and see what the minimums are here. And again, we're also assuming for Dubai that there is going to be no major problems and everything is going to be functional, which means that we will have a landing minimum of RVR 550 meters. And this is not a ceiling, but this is a descent altitude. This is going to be the barrel, and this is going to be the radio altitude for the minimum. So by 200 feet radio altitude, you should be able to see the ground. If you can't, then that's a go around. So you need to have a visibility of more than 550 meters for a category 1 approach, which is the normal approach. Category 2, 3, those are specialized and have much lower minimums, but you have to be certified, and the plane has to be certified to be able to perform those. So we're dealing specifically with category 1 at this point. So we can get rid of that, and now that we know what the weather is and we know that we can make the flight, then now it is time for us to go. Is an alternate required? Well, this flight is definitely going to need an alternate because it's more than 6 hours long, and our alternate is going to be taken care of by SimBrief, essentially. So now that we are here on the SimBrief page, we already got the flight plan, the flight number, which is the UAE is the airline identifier. The flight number here, 2568, departing from Guadalajara, over to Dubai, and the alternate was automatically picked for us by SimBrief. The date is the 18th of May. Can be the 18th of May. It gotta be the 19th because that would be ahead in the future, and this would be behind. So I plan to depart at 1:30 in the morning, and then we make sure that we put in the cost index and all that. So check the en route weather, including diversion routes, etc., and determine the whole fuel based on weather, ATC fuel conditions, and historical weather. No. Okay, I'll do that in another video. So again, we looking at fairly reasonably okay weather en route. No, we can got some. I think that's from this one today. So this long squiggly line here is a jet stream. It's very heavy, and this is the significant weather map, you could as well say, for the entire world. So we got a jet stream here, and then there's going to be some clear air turbulence in these areas, and some weather. So you got some isolated embedded cumulonimbus up to 410, and this is a high level chart, so it starts at flight level. Oh dear. I think the high level chart starts at flight level 250. So this is the X's on the bottom here mean that is from the chart level, below the chart level, all the way up to flight level 410 is where that area of weather will be. So we can reasonably expect that when we're passing over this waypoint here, which is Obcall, which is our oceanic entry, that there's going to be some level of turbulence associated with the weather in the area. Now remember that this area here is oceanic airspace, so no radar in there. And then when we get over here close to Africa, there's also another and this is up to 500, so we'll have to watch for weather in there as well. I don't think it's going to be anything serious. As you can clearly see, there's no precipitation noted there. There's some just over here, over by we passed over there last night, Rio de Janeiro. But essentially we should have a fairly smooth flight for the most of it. This is probably going to be like an hour or so, maybe two, of potential turbulence. But for the most part it should be okay. We got favorable winds, thankfully. Most of it is above 50 knots. You got this little area here where the winds are a little lighter over Africa, but for the generally speaking, going across the Atlantic, we should expect reasonably good speeds. That being the case, now it is time for us to click generate, because we figured out everything. We know that we taken 296 passengers and 7 tons of freight with a zero fuel weight of 167.8. We'll let that take care of the altitude, and I put an extra 40 minutes on board. I'm probably going to add more than that when I actually get in the plane, because this plane, it seems, likes to burn more fuel than it's supposed to, and I want to be able to make it to Dubai safely. I do. So that being the case, I think we're all good to go. We see what the flight plan is here, and the rat cycle is current. So we're making sure that the units are what we want them to be, and I'm using a Lido flight plan because Lido flight plans, at least to me, are more they give more information. I know where everything is laid out. I like their laid out much better. That being the case, we can click generate. Yes, we want to overwrite the previous one and this will generate the necessary information. It's not going to give us any, honestly, because when I did it yesterday, I don't know, something was clearly wrong. It didn't give me any payload yesterday, and it still hasn't given me any payload, so I'm going to have to calculate that myself, and I think it's 105 kilos per person. 5 times 296 give me 31,080 as a payload for passengers and their bags, and then plus 7 for the extra cargo. That's plus 7,000. That I did the wrong thing. That's my fault. Yeah, that's my fault. So give me 38,087. 38,087 for the payload. $38,100, maybe. We can call it 38,100. And essentially that's it for the time being until we get into the flight. I really want to do a better explanation of things. So for now, this is going to be it, and I will see you when we go jump into the plane. So be right back.